We were first to land on the moon, map the human genome, and now we're harnessing AI to transform the future. We go further, live better, think smarter when government, universities, and industry collaborate to advance America's edge. At the Hopkins Bloomberg Center, we convene policymakers, global leaders, and academic experts in the heart of the nation's capital to transform knowledge into tangible solutions. We're building on 150 years of groundbreaking research at Johns Hopkins. Research that led to GPS technology, the first artificial heart implant, and successfully redirected an asteroid. Now, help shape the future through new ideas and partnerships. Explore emerging tech, experience art and performances, engage with new perspectives, and be part of what's next. The Johns Hopkins University Bloomberg Center. Join us in securing the next 150 years of world-changing impact.
Please welcome Johns Hopkins University President, Ron Daniels.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the Johns Hopkins University Bloomberg Center. I think I could get that naturally after all these years. This year, Johns Hopkins, America's first research university, is observing our 150th anniversary. When we opened our doors in 1876, Johns Hopkins established an entirely new kind of university, one that would be the first in America to unite education and research, the first to create knowledge shaped by public need and shared as a public good. And we did so at a profoundly fraught moment for the nation. The Civil War's embers still smoldered, the peace was precarious, the population was still divided. The American experiment was still very experimental indeed. At this moment of immense uncertainty, our university's founders imagined an institution steeped in the ideas that first animated our great democracy. They built a university dedicated to the foundational role of facts and evidence in building a just society. A university dedicated to the idea that truth could be shaped by rigorous dialogue, informed by a broad range of ideas and perspectives, and harnessed to help the country heal, thrive, and innovate. Today, at 150 years old, Johns Hopkins is still devoted to that core mission. We're truly pleased to welcome you to this magisterial building where we embody that mission in everything we do. This is a place designed to inspire dialogue across differences, a place where leaders and policymakers, students and faculty, and the public at large are invited to take up the most difficult issues facing our nation. This is a place where we never shrink from democracy's most essential duty, to discuss, to debate, and to learn from one another in our common pursuit of a safer, healthier, and more prosperous society for all. I cannot tell you how deeply gratifying it is to be able to host NBC's Common Ground, which resonates so deeply with our core mission. Thank you for joining us today at the Hopkins Bloomberg Center and for being a critical part of this very important work. Thank you.
Please welcome the co-CEO of Comcast, Mike Cavanaugh.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, Ron, and thank you, Johns Hopkins. What a beautiful space we're in today, and thank you for having us. This is our first live event for Common Ground. So this is a project that's been working in our company for about the past year. It is something that myself, Brian, the leadership of the whole corporation is very excited to get behind, because what it stands for is really bringing people together. And when you really think about what our whole company is about, this is the latest edition. So we are the largest provider of internet services to consumers and small businesses throughout the country, 30 million plus provided. On the NBC side, we reach more than 100 million homes across NBC, Peacock, and our other cable properties, including Telemundo. And things like the fantastic Olympics that hopefully we all just enjoyed in the last couple of months, Super Bowl and World Cup coming up, and we're just 2 years away from LA 28. So our TV properties are just part of the glue that in our company's mission is to connect, inform, and entertain. And so when it comes to the entertain part, our movie studios, leading iconic library with some great stuff coming this year from Christopher Nolan with The Odyssey and Steven Spielberg with Disclosure Day. And then finally, our theme parks business, where thousands and thousands, tens of thousands, visit our parks around the world. And our newest park, Epic Universe, that opened last year, the most technologically advanced theme park that's been opened anywhere in the world in the past 25 years. So we couldn't be prouder of our mission to really connect our fellow citizens in so many ways. But news is the core to what we're all about. And so when the idea was brought to create the platform that is Common Ground by Rebecca and Caesar and the entire news team, we got right behind it, because I think it is yet another addition to the spirit of what makes our company's mission. So again, I want to thank everybody for being here with us today, and enjoy the next couple of hours. So thank you all.
Please welcome the chairman of NBC Universal News Group, Caesar Conde.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Ron, for that warm welcome beforehand, and to Johns Hopkins for hosting us. And Mike, thank you for your leadership and for the reminder of how shared experiences can bring people together. We are so grateful for your personal support, and that of Comcast, of course, for this initiative and for our news organization. So at NBC News, we reach more than half of American adults each month. Now, that reach is a privilege, but more importantly, it's a responsibility. A responsibility not just to inform, but to convene, to create spaces for conversations that are too often missing from our national discourse. That's what Common Ground is all about. Over the past year, we've been listening closely to people across the country, across platforms, communities, and perspectives. And what we've heard is clear. People are exhausted by the constant noise and conflict. They're looking for clarity, for understanding, and for the conversations that move us towards solutions. So we asked ourselves a fundamental question. What is the role of journalism in a moment like this? For us, the answer is not to retreat from disagreement, but to engage it more constructively. Not to force consensus, but to foster understanding. Because some of the most important progress that we have made in history has come from people who didn't agree on everything, but chose to work together on what mattered most. Common Ground brings that spirit to life across our programs, our platforms, and now here today. For news organizations, this effort goes beyond Washington. It's about where we find common ground across our society, in our communities and our culture, and in the experiences that remind us what we share. And that's what this afternoon is all about. So to bring that to life, let's take a look at Common Ground. Thank you for joining us today.
I think about 80% of us could agree on 85% of things.
Courage is whether or not you're willing to stand with someone you don't always agree with for the betterment of this country.
How do you start the conversation of how you can do more work together?
I really don't think of this as bipartisan work. This is just American work.
Everybody gets upset about what divides us, and nobody gets excited about what connects us.
We have differences of opinion, but the issue is our humanity.
There is more that binds us as Americans than divides us.
We're wired for connection. We have to find that connection.
This is a golden opportunity to disagree better.
I still have great hope for this country, of unity, of inclusion, of equality. The American story is about pushing us closer towards those ideals.
Do the hard work, sit down with people you disagree with, and say, let's figure this out.
Please welcome the Chief Data Analyst for NBC News, Steve Kornacki.
Thank you. All right, thank you, everybody. Appreciate everybody being here. And I should probably start by pleading guilty. You know, you hear those voices saying we're looking for places where we actually do have common ground, areas of agreement. And too often what I do, I think in my day-to-day life, it's about elections. I'm covering elections that are often 50-50 elections. And to prepare for those elections, I'm at this board on the air, going over polling and looking for those points of division, the points of division that are going to answer the question about who might win, who might lose the election. And so this was actually kind of a refreshing exercise for me. It was to take a look at the same data, the same polling data that I am using all the time, and to apply a different lens. And to look at that same data and say, where are the points of connection? Are there points of agreement? Are there points of consensus? And I think, to my surprise, the answer wasn't just yes. The answer was it is in more places than I probably would have expected. It's in mundane places. It's in everyday places. It's in political places. It's even in existential places. And so what I'm going to do here for the next few minutes, if you will, come along with me. We're going to take a little bit of a journey. It's going to be a tour of unity from a data standpoint. And so we'll start maybe big picture on this, sort of at a foundational level, a values level. This is some polling that's out there, and we're looking for statements that 80% or more of Americans say they agree with, that resonate with them. And again, honesty is the best policy. You might expect that one to have consensus, but then again, in this day and age, you might expect that nothing has consensus. We do broadly agree. Honesty is the best policy. Two wrongs don't make a right. The U.S. is stronger because it has people from different races, religions, and cultures, and political leaders should compromise with the other party to get things done. So again, zoom out, and what do we have? We have sort of a common moral, ethical architecture for how we kind of look at the world and approach thinking about the world. I said existential, literally existential common ground. Nearly 9 out of 10 folks believe that we've got a soul. More than 8 out of 10 believe in God. 79% believe in something spiritual beyond the natural world. 7 out of 10 believe that there is an afterlife. So at an existential level, we certainly find unity. We'll start to get to the political realm right here. Where's the unity in this, right? This is what we're used to. This is what I'm used to. Ask about Barack Obama. The Democrats love him. The Republicans have a very different opinion. Ask about Donald Trump. The Democrats do not like him. The Republicans have a very different opinion. Where is their unity? Where is their consensus when it comes to presidents? It's in our history. It's in our history. For instance, if you ask about Abraham Lincoln, each party broadly, overwhelmingly agrees there's consensus about Abraham Lincoln. There's consensus about many other presidents from our history. So we do have common ground in our history and how we got to here. Then there is the political realm, and we're going to go through that right now. And we're going to go through it with a series of statements that I think if you look at these statements, some of them you're going to say, that's something a Democrat would say. Some of them you're going to say, that's something a Republican would say. But strip the party labels off of it, because when you just read these statements to people, you find broad consensus. We're talking 3 out of 4, 4 out of 5, more Americans, Democrats, Republicans. These are things in the political realm that they agree on when you take the party labels off of it. For instance, more than 8 out of 10, they like term limits, okay, 81%. 79%, they don't want to see cuts to Social Security. No reductions in benefits, they say. 87% on the fraught topic of immigration, deportations of those who are here illegally and who have criminal records. That's Democrats, that's Republicans, that's independents. 87% on that one. How about 82%? Paid family and medical leave, federal paid family medical leave. Again, Republicans are there, Democrats are there. That is consensus. 80% requiring ID from voters at polling places. Again, broad consensus here. 84% tax-free savings for home down payments. Broad consensus between the parties. 79% believe that biological men should not be competing in women's sports. How about 84% more funding for trade schools, for vocational training? 86% say they want background checks for gun sales, for firearms purchases. And then the biggest number we could find here in the political realm, how about legislation that affects telemarketer, restrictions on telemarketing? I thought this one would be higher, actually, but it clocks in at 80. Some of us are related to telemarketers, I bet, so there is that. How about America in the world, how we think about the world, how we think about who our friends are, how we think about countries that maybe we have some issues with? Also, the government. I'm sorry, I forgot. The government itself, not entirely unpopular. The National Park Service, the National Weather Service, the Postal Service. And how about this? This is before Artemis. NASA was at 67%. I'd like to see what that number is the next time they poll this, but already it was very popular there, 2 out of 3. Now I set up the other countries, how the country thinks about them. Japan, Italy, Canada, Denmark, broad agreement in this country. These are our friends in the world. North Korea, Iran, Russia, broad agreement that we've got some issues with those countries. So again, you take the party labels off, you look at the world, you do see more consensus. And then I said the mundane, the everyday. That doesn't mean the unimportant, because how we connect to other people, how we interact with people in the world, that is important. That's the essential part of being humans, right? So where can we find some agreement there? How about this? 2 out of 3 say that coleslaw is a salad. I might be in the 1/3 on that one, but 2 out of 3 say that. How about this? 73% say a hamburger's a sandwich. And then we scoured far, we scoured wide. Where could we find in polling the single biggest area of agreement among all Americans? All right? I want you to think about when you wake up in the morning, you have a bowl of cereal, okay? When do you put the milk in the cereal? All right? 93%. They put the cereal first, then they put the milk. We could not find more common ground than this. So you got that. Thank you very much.
Please welcome moderator of Meet the Press and anchor of Meet the Press Now, Kristen Welker.
I definitely put my cereal in first before my milk. How about you guys? Let's give one more big round of applause to the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg Center for hosting this event. NBC News, Comcast. And thank you so much to all of you for being here today, for joining us. Before I bring out our esteemed panelists, we have a very special message to share with you. Over the weekend, my incredible colleague, Jenna Bush Hager, had the opportunity to sit down with each of the 4 former U.S. presidents at a private event hosted by the History Channel called History Talks in partnership with our corporate parent, Comcast. Now, she spoke to them about what they think unites us as we celebrate our country's 250th anniversary. Here's some of that conversation.
My message is, don't give up on America. We're the longest lasting, freely elected government in history now. And a lot of people didn't think we'd make it this long. I think it'd be a good thing if we made it longer. So everybody should be thinking about that this year. Do I want to make it longer? Because if I do, then I have to favor cooperation over constant conflict, and I have to be willing to lose as well as win.
We're the most unique country in the world. Most unique country in the world in the sense that we really do think democracy is dictated by the rules of the Constitution. And we do believe, and we act, and when we do well, that all men are created equal. Everyone's entitled to a shot, that everybody has a shot. And I think as we do that, people, it grows instead of focusing on divisions, because we're not nearly as divided as we're being portrayed.
If we hold true to that idea, that we, the people, have been gifted this chance of self-government, if we pay attention to our responsibilities and our duties, and if we extend respect and thoughtfulness to our fellow citizens, even if we disagree with them, if we understand that part of this democratic project is to sort through our differences in peaceful, legal ways, then I'm confident that we're going to have another 250-year run that's going to be just as good.
My message is consider yourself fortunate to be a part of a great nation. Study our history so you have a better sense for what the future will be like. And be a citizen, not a spectator. And by that, I mean participate in the process, but also love a neighbor like you'd like to be loved yourself.
All right. What an incredible conversation that was for former presidents. We want to keep the conversation going. Joining me now on stage are Republican Senator Katie Britt of Alabama and Democratic Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania. Please give them a warm welcome. Thank you both so much for being here.
I really appreciate you having us.
We appreciate
Hey,
you so much. Thank you so much. Please have a seat, both of you. We are thrilled that you could both be here for this Common Ground event. Is that good?
Yeah.
We really appreciate it.
Oh, it's great to be here.
And we're going to get to some policy and politics in a second, but I want to start off by talking about something personal, which is the relationship between the two of you, which is genuine. The two of you met Senator Fetterman during freshman orientation. Tell me about that and why the two of you formed a fast friendship.
I mean, I was struck first that her husband is actually bigger than I am. And I'm like, is that her bodyguard or what's the story behind this? Wes, and it turned out that he lived the dream, my dream. I mean, he played for Alabama, which would have been the equivalent of Penn State for me, and then played in the pros, you know. So I played football too, but not very well, and but no, so that's how that conversation started, and then it really kind of picked up right there and never slowed down, really.
Senator Britt, how has the relationship evolved? Why is it still going strong? Again, it's a personal relationship, but it's a professional one as well. You're trying to get things done on Capitol Hill.
Absolutely. So, and I think that we use the trust and the respect that we have for each other in our friendship to be able to talk about hard things and talk about pathways forward. But our friendship, both anchored there at freshman orientation and with both of our spouses getting to know each other as well, we've taken the time to not just understand our politics or position on something, but to really get to know each other as people. And I think that that's missing so much right now. And I think when you do that, when you ask about each other's kids and you know what's going on, and we've also commiserated over some of our votes and having to miss our children's activities and how do we do this whole thing, and also our frustration with some of the gridlock and the lack of communication and conversation. And so our conversations we have utilized to kind of try to spur something different in the Senate.
One of the things that struck me when I was researching your relationship and your shared policy proposals, Senator Britt, is that you actually visited Senator Fetterman when he was in the hospital. He was struggling with mental health issues, which you've been quite vocal about. Why was that important to you to take that extra step to actually visit Senator Fetterman?
Well, look, let me tell you something. John has more courage. And the strength that he showed in that moment is something that I hope everyone in America looks to and learns from. And for him to trust me enough to be in that space with him, I will always want to be worthy of that trust. And I know that when we look at what's happening across our country, that there are so many people that are reticent to say, hey, I need some help. And John showed that that is the pathway forward and that treatment works. And I'm just grateful for his example and for his friendship.
Senator Fetterman, what did it mean to you that Senator Britt came to visit you?
Oh, I mean, of course, it made the world. And it just to remind, I mean, I would just remind anybody, for my advice is, it's like makes it virtually impossible to be cruel or unkind to someone if you at least have a relationship or at least know that person. I think it's a good rule that don't say anything on social media about someone that you wouldn't say to someone in person. And social media especially has made that kinds of cruelty or those kinds of comments just a throwaway and easy because it's not really connected. It's almost like a video game. And that's part of the coarsening. And now having relationships, now it's often punished where it's like, that's the enemy because we're on different parties. And that's absurd because that's the way no matter who's in the majority or in the minority, working together, it's the only way it actually works. And we can't forget that, because it gets more and more difficult and things become more polarized.
Well, speaking of working together, I do want to, and you raise the issue of social media, so you take me to my next topic perfectly, which is an area where you have joined forces, youth mental health and social media. You co-authored bipartisan bills, the Stop the Scroll Act and the Kids Off Social Media Act. Senator Britt, tell me about these bills. Why are they important? Why are you teaming up on them?
Yeah, I think if you look at these, John and I approach this, along with a number of our colleagues, not as Democrats or Republicans, but as concerned parents. I mean, we see what's happening across our country when it comes to mental health, and we know the impact it's having on our youth. And the more that we learn, the more we feel obligated to make sure that we're protecting the next generation. If you look at the stats themselves, 1 in 3 high school young women last year said she actually considered death by suicide. And then 25% of high school young women in 2023 said they made a plan to take their own life. And then 12% actually attempted death by suicide. When you add in young men, that number is 9%. We know that the rate of depression amongst young people more than doubled during 2011 and 2019, where there was also a coinciding of a rise in social media and using among young people. So John and I thought, what are some simple things that we can do to help warn people, warn parents about those negative effects? And so the Stop the Scroll Act, which John got marked up in the Commerce Committee, I think just last week, so we were really excited about that. That's a big step and pathway forward. We'll do a pop-up screen on anyone, young people's phones, just to say that there are challenging mental health effects. And Kristen, one thing that we did is we know that the Surgeon General and others will actually figure out what that says, but we wanted to make sure that there was a link to help, so that if someone found themselves in an unthinkable situation, that they would be able to click there and hopefully receive the kind of help that would prevent them from doing damage or harm to themselves. And then the Kids Off Social Media Act that we have together, along with Ted Cruz, and you've got Chris Murphy and myself and others. I mean, so a very wide spectrum of individuals, and John as well. It says you can't be on social media before 13, and then it says that we won't be able to use algorithms against our children. Brian Schatz is a member of this coalition as well. And then it says, Eyes on the Board, which is one of John and Ted Cruz's pieces of legislation, that just says if you're at school, you should be at school, and those apps should be disabled. So those, along with a number of others, we have CASA that's been led by Senator Blackburn and Senator Blumenthal that we hope will gain support, and COPPA 2.0. So there's a lot of good things out there, but the point is it's time to do something, Kristen. Doing nothing to me is feckless, and the next generation is paying the price.
Well, Senator Fetterman, pick up on that point. Do you think you have the votes to get this legislation passed? And how much did your own personal experience with social media apps, what you're referencing, impact your desire to see change in this space? I'm 56. And when I was a kid, the only to see really bad or mean things, you had to see that in a bathroom wall. With social media is the most efficient device ever developed that can deliver it right to your screen. And then there's another one, and then another one. And then if you see one, and then the algorithm will tell you there's 10 more coming. And then if you look at 1 or 2 of them, then there's 20 coming in there. And it creates that. And you can quickly get overwhelmed. And that's become like a friend, or at least a companion for your child. And if you had a friend or a companion showing up in your child's life and spending 3 or 4 hours a day with them, you really want to know and understand who that is spending that time with your child. And it needs to be maybe safer, and just realize what it really is. And I would encourage everybody, put the phone down or spend less time. I'll ask your audience, after you spend an hour on social media, raise your hand if you feel better about your life and the world and everything. Anyone? No hand. Yeah. I don't see anything.
I've never encountered one, and that's the point. And it's a choice. Don't forget, it's a choice to do that. And one of the best things I've done is I've completely unplugged by that. I produce my messaging, but I don't sit around and And when I've made the mistake to do that after I won my election, that's when things really got bad and the depression set in. And protecting that, we did this together, not just as senators, but also as parents, because we have young children too. And if we want it for us, we probably, it's the appropriate thing for tools for America's parents.
Yeah, and John and I say we don't have to ask people what it's like to raise kids right now with these devices, and we're living it.
The
and
challenges.
Absolutely. And you think about when we want America to lead, and this is one area where we're not. Other countries have stepped up to the plate, and we continue to kind of walk past it, and the time to do something is now.
Well, it's something that we're going to continue to track really closely because it is so critical, and I think it's one of the biggest issues that parents, that families in general are focused on right now. I do want to turn to another big issue, the war in Iran. Senator Fetterman, you have voted against several Democratic efforts to limit President Trump's war powers in Iran. You've said you don't want to put limits, tie his hands when he's in the middle of waging this conflict. As you both know, a key deadline is coming up. We're bumping up against 60 days, May 1st, since the start of the war. Will you vote to keep U.S. forces engaged in this conflict once it hits that 60-day mark, whereby Congress, by law, does need to weigh in?
I will vote. I will continue to vote. My vote's not going to change. I know it's perhaps the most toxic thing a Democrat can embrace. I've seen, where's Kornacki? I mean, I polled the numbers on the screen. The AP poll this week said that 4% of Democrats support that. And the air is about 3%. So I'm the one, the one left that's in the air. And because for me, it's not controversial as a Democrat, every single member of Congress, and when you have someone out here, ask them too, should we allow Iran to acquire a nuclear bomb? Not every single Democrat in Congress says, yes, absolutely not, absolutely not. So here we are. You don't have to agree in every element of epic fury, but if we all agree that we could never allow them to acquire a nuclear bomb, I don't know why we wouldn't want to empower the president to say, no, make sure that Iran can't become a nuclear power, because if they do become a nuclear power, the prices about gas and the instability and the kinds of attack on Israel can only accelerate, because once they become nuclear, Iran effectively becomes untouchable. And here we are at the cusp. I wouldn't want to work all this work got in and just back away, because politically, yes, entirely, it's absolute toxic for a Democrat to have that view.
Senator Britt, let me ask you, because I've heard from Democrats and some Republicans too, who say they want the president to deliver a more fulsome justification of not just the war, but his strategy moving forward. Will you vote to greenlight this war after 60 days?
Yeah, I think what we will see is the administration talk to us about exactly what's going on and what's going to be done. I do. And I also anticipate, look, we've made significant progress. I mean, you've heard that from the president and from the White House. This should have been done 47 years ago.
Also, I mean, President Obama with Libya, I mean, that carried on for a while. And the dynamic and the conversation was much different back then. And I think at the time, I think that was entirely appropriate. But this is not brand new in the American experience. And a Democratic president done the same thing. And Kamala Harris, when she was running for president as a Democrat, I campaigned for her in late 2024. She said, that's my top danger internationally. We can't ever allow Iran to acquire a nuclear bomb, and I refuse to take the military option off the table. This is not like an extreme view for a Democrat, but it's become an extreme view for Democrats, and I believe a lot of that's driven by, it happens to be coming by deeply, deeply polarizing and our president for Dems.
And I do, I believe we've got to finish the job. I know people are ready for us to conclude that, and I do believe that the White House is focused on making that happen. But look, this is the largest state sponsor of terrorism across the globe. But we look at what they've done. We look at who they embolden, whether it's Hamas or Hezbollah or the Houthis and beyond. We know that puts our troops at risk. It puts our people at risk and our allies at risk. So I do think we will hear in the next week from the administration.
I mean, I think, we all remember President Reagan, tear this wall down. And, the world should effectively turn and say, Iran, tear this war down, relinquish your nuclear ambitions and hold, all of us should hold them accountable in the world. And when these countries say that's not our war, it's like, well, do you consume oil? Yeah, well then that's make it your war too. If a nation, you consume oil, then it's your war too. We all have a stake in that.
Very, very quickly, and we're almost out of time, but in typical Meet the Press fashion, I have a million more questions. Okay. But do you think a deal is possible? Do you both think it's possible?
I do.
You do?
I hope so. I don't think you can trust Iran by any stretch, but I think that we can certainly find a pathway forward, and I hope that they conclude it soon.
Iran just massacred 30,000 of its young people, just killed them. They just are hanging teenagers, literally.
So is it possible to make a deal with them, do you
think? Of course you can't. You can't trust them. Absolutely not. That's my point. And now, the way we continue to vote against Epic Fury, Iran understands we just have to last to 60 days. And so that's, if we could just, we can be, you would talk about common ground, it's our military. We have a goal, disagree on parts, but that should be what I think we should all be unified on.
And Kristen, you can't embolden this enemy. And he brings up a great point. I mean, there were people before that were talking about what was actually happening to Iranian citizens, and now those people have gone quiet. I think we have to realize what is happening there in their country and what they're capable of. So I think there can be absolutely no enrichment, zero pathway for that. I mean, we have to be very strong, but I think this administration can and will be. I mean, look, when Donald Trump speaks, people listen because they know he's going to follow through, and I think that's what we'll see on this.
All right, a little bit of a rapid fire round, if we can. I want to talk about both of your political futures. Senator Fetterman, as you know, there's a lot of speculation.
I have a future.
Yes. Does that mean you're definitely running for office again? Because you haven't said.
Yeah, I have a future.
Okay. Well, I want to ask you because
America needs him. I mean, you think about his willingness to speak truth in every single situation. Look, he votes with Democrats 90-something% of the time, but I appreciate his willingness to call balls and strikes.
Oh yeah, last night we were till at 4 a.m.
Yes.
How many votes was that?
Too many. I mean,
35 votes.
We kept
and I voted every single Democrat vote last night.
You did. There was a vote-a-rama for those of you who don't know, and so they were up all night and still made it here.
That's right.
Kudos to both of you.
And I also think, you think about this, all-nighters, if you pulled one of those, it was likely to study for a test in college or maybe doing something you don't want to talk about. But when we are doing that, I often think it's hard. All night, I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I think we have colleagues that have more life experience than us. And I wonder how in the world they make it through, but they do. They push through.
Well, we appreciate you guys pushing through to be here after an all-nighter. As you know, Senator Fetterman, the Pennsylvania Republican Party chairman, actually said last week he'd consider supporting your reelection in 2028 if you became a Republican, if you switched parties. You haven't said definitively that you're running for reelection unless you'd like to announce it here. But would you ever consider running for office as a Republican, Senator?
As much as I'm friends with a lot of Republicans, including my parents, I'm not a Republican, and so that's what it's really was. That's the truth. People always say we have to be a big tent party. So it's really strange. I'm mystified by it. If I'm more popular, I've had Republican friends in my state say, you're actually more popular than I am, with our people. And how a guy that votes a 93% Dem line has that happen. I'm mystified by it. I can't explain it, but I think that demonstrates. I don't know. But that's here we are. But I absolutely do know as a Democrat how to pay the bills. And you can win, and actually people have won elections by having campaigns saying F Trump repeatedly, again and again and again and again. And that's become common. That's commonplace. So, I know that, but that means that I refuse to engage in that because I think it's more important to engage everybody and things we can agree, things that we can disagree on, but we'll do it in a respectful way. And we've all forgot that we're all Americans.
And are you running for re-election, Senator? Are you running for re-election?
You before backstage, you're just like, it's going to be really easy and just.
That's easy.
I don't trust the media right here now.
That's
so
easy.
yes.
Let me ask you this.
Oh, that's
You've
good.
never talked about running for president, but would you support Senator Fetterman if he were to say, I'm going to run for president?
Look,
I'll vote for whatever she does next. Although I'm not in Alabama or whatever. But
there you go. Look, I just said it. I mean, he's a breath of fresh air for everybody, and I hope that people take a step back. He just said, you said you vote with Democrats 93% of the time. But yet the few things where he is voting with Republicans are things like Israel and that used to be mainstream, in the Democratic Party, or even like keeping the government open. Thank you for continuing to vote to keep the government open.
Yeah, well, I mean, if anyone here there's married, and we are, if you agree with your partner 93% of the time.
That's a home run.
Yeah, that'd be an amazing
That's a home run.
I'm not getting anything close to that in mind.
That's right. That's right.
So,
Senator Fetterman, would you support Senator Britt if she were to announce she's running for president one day?
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, I've described this in interviews that they're America's family.
We're gonna
the big unit. That's the big unit.
So he calls my husband the big unit. So you know how large John is. I mean, John takes up a door frame, right?
Yeah, he is. He's
and Wesley is a large man too.
Nicest guy.
And so they look basically eye to eye. And John calls him the big unit. And when we text together, John trademarks the big unit. And there's rarely a conversation, even if it's a very serious one that we have to have about policy or where, I'm like, hey, explain this to me. Or he said, well, what about this? And what he usually always starts it with, how's the big unit?
Well, we are out of time. But before I let you go, my colleague Lester Holt is about to interview NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman and former astronaut Suni Williams. So I have to ask both of you. Senator Britt, would you ever go to space if you had the opportunity?
Oh, wow. I wasn't ready for that. Yeah, if somebody gave me the chance. I mean, that was the most incredible thing to watch. And I loved watching America be unified around Artemis, around this mission. And we were proud in Alabama. So much of that work is done at Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama. And so as we were cheering them on, we were also cheering on the men and women that made that possible, knowing how they worked countless. And, many people, I appreciate Administrator Isaacman for rolling in the time and saying, no, we're going to do this now and we're going to do it more often because there's a lot of work to be done and we're going to continue to lead when it comes to space, and Alabama's proud to be a part of it. So, yeah, we should go together. What do you think?
You guys should go together. Senator Fetterman, would you be on board?
Well, I saw the numbers on NASA. That should be 100% who supports NASA. Yep. I mean, it's a remarkable thing. But now remind people too. I saw that 10% of Americans believe we never were to the moon. To 10%. I mean, that's part of misinformation, and that's a serious problem in our society right now. Misinformation that used to become propaganda from countries like in Russia, but now we have that, and that's another reason why social media is dangerous.
And would you go to the moon? And what do you think was so unified
Would I
about
go to the
that
moon?
moment?
I don't think they have 4XL, in a suit.
Yeah, they said the size of that thing, John, was like the size of a minivan.
Yeah.
So that may be a little cramped.
All right, guys.
No, I don't think I have to worry about it, honestly. Yeah.
Well, this was an extraordinary conversation. We can't thank you enough. It's so important to hear your bipartisan message, and we really appreciate it.
And thank you for letting us do this, because I think America needs to see more of this. While we disagree on a number of issues, I think being able to respect someone who you don't agree with is something we need to bring back, and I think it gives people both hope and permission to do it in their own life.
Senator Fetterman, any last thoughts?
We have to find a way to get together. Honestly, I wish I had, I tell people, I constantly, where I go and I do most of the shopping for my family, I tell people, it's like, hey, you know, like, it's okay, you should relax, you know? It's much worse than you think, you know, in Washington, D.C. you know, and that's the thing.
That's good.
I'm concerned about that. And so all I can be is an example and to remind people that I think is a better way forward. And that's why I'm excited to have a conversation like this.
Senators Fetterman and Britt, thank you both so much.
My name is Adam Silverman, and I'm the artist who made this project, Common Ground. When the project began in the fall of 2019, the country was already in a very divisive place. If you look at satellite photos of the country, you don't see the states. You don't see the borders between the states. You don't see red and blue or purple. You see green and brown and blue of the water. I just wanted clay, water, and wood ash from each state and territory. It's literally these materials from every state and territory combined into one material, reuniting the country literally in a bucket as clay, water, and wood ash, and then combining those materials to make glaze for these pots, and then putting ash in the kiln that melts onto them. So it is literally the entire country in a plate in front of you. All of these people came together to send me materials. It was bringing all these people together around the project before the project was even made, which was amazing. The guy who collected the materials in DC told me that at night he went to the mall and got a bucket of water out of the reflecting pools, so that's in it. The woman from Maine who sent the water, she just packed the bottle with snow and put it in the box. The sort of diversity of the crowd who reached out was very surprising and encouraging to me. It was really Democrats and Republicans and independents and military people and every skin color and gay and straight. Hundreds of people have eaten off of these plates and bowls and cups, and almost universally the response is really visceral. You know, they can hold it, you can see it, you can taste it. The project is incredibly simple. I mean, naively simple and very literal. We all share more in common than we share in difference. Our DNA might be slightly different, but basically we're the same. We can come together around these pots and have a meal, and it'll help us reunite as a country in some small way.
Please welcome Chief Capitol Hill correspondent for NBC News, Ryan Nobles.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. I guess you've already been welcome. Thank you for still being here and not leaving early. I really want to thank my bosses at NBC News for freeing me from my most important job, and that's NBC's chief zoo correspondent. And the one thing I learned this week while covering the new addition to the zoo, if it's one thing that there is plenty of common ground in the United States on, it's that baby elephants are very cute. I learned that firsthand. And if you haven't been to the National Zoo to see the baby elephant, or the flirting pandas for that matter, I highly recommend it. I'm going to talk now about a different zoo that I cover every day, and that's Capitol Hill. And please join me in welcoming our panel from the House of Representatives, the distinguished gentlewomen, the Democratic representative from Michigan, Debbie Dingell, and Republican Representative Nicole Malliotakis of New York.
Sorry, Debbie. How are you?
You can hug. That's okay.
Well, we do all the time.
Well, thank you guys both for being here. And I don't think many people think of the House of Representatives as being a place where people get along every single day. But I know you two have a lot that you work on together. And I want to point out a distinguished guest that we have in the audience, and that is Wonder Woman herself. Linda Carter is here.
Oh, there she is.
And someone said to me, how does Linda Carter get here? And I said, well, she has the invisible plane that she takes everywhere all around the world. If I can get a ride on that later, that would be great. But one of the and I know obviously she's famous and wonderful, and we wanted to introduce her, but she has a tangible reason here, and that's because she's working with both of you to bring the Smithsonian's Women's History Museum to Washington, D.C., which is a huge endeavor that you both do. Yeah. And I think that's a great place to start. Talk to me about why that's important and why you're dedicated to making that happen.
Well, women are a very important part of the history of this country. And there's so many stories people don't even know. Even if you go back to, we're celebrating the 250th anniversary of the country this year. People don't know the stories of the women that were involved. How many people know one woman signed the Declaration of Independence? So we believe strongly, we don't look at this as Democrats or Republicans or Wonder Woman. We look at it as people in this country should know the history of so many incredible women.
Mm-hmm. And can we make this happen? What's it going to take to make it happen?
Well, little by little, we're getting there. I think we have a lot of bipartisan support for the idea. We're moving along, and we did get it authorized. And I wasn't here at the time when it was actually authorized back in 2020, but since then I've taken up the cause, and I'm the prime sponsor along with Debbie to get the land transferred on the National Mall so it has its rightful place there with all the other Smithsonian museums. And like Debbie said, it is critically important. We want to know the stories of these amazing women who have come before us, who have helped build this nation. I think it's so critical for the future to learn about those women. And I know that, there's so many stories we could all share about women that we know that other people may not know. For example, in my district, we have the Black Angels, and they were African-American nurses who came in at the height of segregation to help cure tuberculosis. And they were treating those tuberculosis patients and helped develop the cure. That's a story that should be in this museum.
Right, terrific. Well, we often talk about the divisiveness on Capitol Hill, particularly in the House of Representatives, and there may be a lot of people that suggest that one of the reasons there's so much divisiveness is because of this mad rush of gerrymandering and redistricting. And we're in a current era where we're seeing kind of gerrymandering on crack, if you will, where we have all these different states, both Republican and Democrat, that have changed their maps. Congresswoman Malliotakis, you represent a district that is in a blue state, and you have criticized your own party for the efforts that they've made in redistricting in other parts of the country. And you've actually introduced a bill that would ban this mid-decade redistricting that we're dealing with right now. Why is that important in terms of trying to find common ground on Capitol Hill?
Well, I think gerrymandering is wrong, regardless of which party does it. And I've been critical when Republicans have done it. I've been critical when the Democrats have done it. I've been the victim of it myself. As you know, just going through this every 2 years, having a legal fight over my current lines. I'm the only competitive district in the city of New York. And I believe strongly that we need competitive districts. If we don't have competitive districts, you end up with either a far left or a far right representative. And that's really what's polarizing Congress today, is that you don't have people meeting in the middle. And I think that if you have competitive districts, and they should be drawn, I believe, using artificial intelligence in the future. It should be independently drawn using AI models that make them as competitive as possible. Because number one, your representative has to work to be reelected. They can be held accountable because those districts are competitive. And you don't end up with these far right and far left members who really come to disrupt the institution as opposed to actually, I think, finding common ground solutions. Yeah,
Congresswoman Dingell, at one point, your house was redistricted out of your district. So you've been on the front lines of this. I mean, I keep going back to the shutdown. We had the longest shutdown in history over the fall, full government shutdown. We're in the midst of the longest partial government shutdown right now. Would there be less shutdowns if we had less gerrymandering?
I hope we just start getting less shutdowns, period.
Right, yeah.
I want to pay the TSA workers to be blunt. But I'm someone, I hadn't thought about the AI approach. We hadn't gotten that far. But I do believe in independent commissions. Michigan our last redistricting was done by an independent commission, and they tried to make more competitive seats. And it was difficult for me because I lived in Dearborn, and they put it in with the Detroit district. And the rest of my district was in another district, and I felt that there should be the opportunity for, if you have fair representation, that there should be an African-American member of our delegation. So it was very hard. I've lived in the same house that I've lived in with John for, almost a long time, decades. But it was difficult. But I support independent commissions. I think this has been, Nicole was in the courts even this year. And we're trying to be bipartisan tonight. I don't think the process should ever have started, and you have to fight fire with fire. And I hope everybody's learned a lesson, and more states go, like my state is, to an independent commission that can use AI as a tool in doing it.
Okay. Let's talk about another divisive issue on Capitol Hill, since we're talking about finding common ground, and that's immigration. And it seems like every time we start a conversation about immigration, automatically both sides retreat to their polar opposites. And it's hard to find that common ground. Congresswoman Malliotakis, you've been willing to buck your party. You have a large Haitian community in your district. You have supported temporary protective status for Haitians, even though the White House has been opposed to that. Members of your own party have been opposed to it. Why is that important to you? And where do you find places where there can be common ground on immigration?
Well, I think people think I have a large Haitian population simply because I voted for that bill, and the truth is I don't.
Okay.
I actually don't. I voted for it for two reasons. One, it was moral reason. Number one, I mean, this is a country was given TPS status simply because they are in civil unrest. They had assassination of their president. They don't have a government. They have gangs overrunning it. And the State Department has a level 4 security for Americans not to travel there.
Right.
So to send individuals back at this time, I think, is just misguided. But I have a practical reason, too, and it is because my district, we do have healthcare workers that are Haitian, and nursing homes that I've spoken to, they will lose qualified, skilled workers that are serving as health assistants if these individuals were stripped of their status and deported. I think we need to be, and no one has really been, I think, more vocal, at least in New York City, about illegal immigration. And I've been very forceful on this issue of needing to secure the border, deport criminals, but I think we need to be practical. As a daughter of immigrants, I could tell you that if we have people here that are working, they're paying taxes, they're doing everything right, they're following the law, they're not committing crimes, why would we send them back at a time when we need them for economic or for health care needs? It makes no sense. And so we're trying to press upon the administration that we need to be reasonable as we approach immigration, not just do these cookie cutter things that and throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think that was what I was trying to get across in terms of a message there. And that's why I voted for it.
Yeah, it's interesting. The word I picked up on when you were talking there was practical, Congresswoman. It feels like it's rare that either side takes a practical approach to immigration. Is that one of the things that both sides need to do to try and find some sort of common sense solution to this problem?
Look, we have needed comprehensive immigration reform through Republican presidents and Democratic presidents. And we need to get it done. All of us, I don't care who you are, want criminals off the street, people that are threatening us. We've got DACA students who have been here, and they're not students anymore. But they've been. They don't even. We need to give them a pathway to citizenship. And by the way, President Trump said he supported that in his first term. We also, as Nicole talked about, you look at the caregivers. 40% of the caregivers in this country are people that are from other countries, and they're wonderful people. Farmers need help. Small businesses need help. There are a lot of industries that are screaming because they can't get people to fill jobs. So we need to look at all the needs. We need to secure our borders. We need to keep ourselves safe. But we also need common sense, comprehensive immigration reform.
One of the slides that Steve didn't put up when he was talking about kind of broad-based support or a broad-based consensus on things was Americans' opinions of Congress. And I don't think I have to tell either of you that Congress is not the most... Yeah, members of Congress are not the most popular people. But in part, it's because of this sense that it's just so hard for you guys to get anything done. And I don't have to tell you guys these stats, but we had 3 House members resign just in the last week for a wide variety of reasons that we don't need to get into. But we've already had 58 members of the House announce that they're going to retire this year. What does that tell you about the working environment that you guys are in? Is it toxic right now? And is there a way out of that toxicity?
We have to have a way out. I'm not... People do make their own life decisions, but I'm staying to fight. I believe in this institution. I believe in this democracy. We've gone through tough times before in our history, and you fix it by staying at it and working together, not being part of the problem or walking away.
Congresswoman?
I think that I just think the environment is a tough environment, right? I mean, social media, I think, changed everything, right? It made the job more miserable, I would say. Yeah. But I came in after the social media, so this is the only thing I know. But what I would say is it has made it difficult. You know, you get, I mean, just take this vote on the TPS, for example. Right. I mean, the attacks that you get for doing what you think is right, you just have to be able to tolerate and ride through that. You know, and a lot of members can't, or they don't want to, or they feel it's not worth it. The death threats, you know, they're concerned about safety for their family. And themselves. So I think all of that plays into the minds. I would not be surprised if a lot of these members are not running because their spouses have convinced them not to because of the threats that they've received. Yeah. But I do think that, you know, we are able to achieve some good things. I mean, so we were able to pass significant historic infrastructure funding. We were able to work together, Debbie and I, on PBM reform to reduce prescription drug prices by eliminating the middlemen that were driving up the costs. We're able to do things if you actually talk to each other and work together, and that's why we're both members of the Problem Solvers Caucus, which, you know, it's a good group, and it opens up that dialogue. We don't always agree, but we do find some common ground, and we endorse legislation that oftentimes do make it to the floor. And those two are examples. The infrastructure and the PBM were two perfect examples of real bipartisan measures where, by the way, the fringes on the far left and the far right voted against the bill, but you had the majority of the members in the middle support it, and I think overall they were very good pieces of legislation. Mm-hmm. The thing is that sometimes I find some of the fringes, they want all or nothing. Right. And so if they don't get everything they want, the bill's no good, and that's not the way government works. You have to try to find some common ground. If you could support overall the majority of the bill, then it's a good bill and you should vote for it. It's like what Mayor Koch used to say in New York City. If you agree with 6 out of 12 things, I forgot. I'll think about it and say it again. I forgot how to say it. If you agree with me 7 out of 12 times, you should vote for me. If you agree with me 12 out of 12 times, you should seek a psychiatrist.
That's it, right? Good, you got it. Well, before you guys go, I started the day talking about animals and my trips to the zoo, but I know you guys are both passionate about animals. You both serve on the Animal Protection Caucus. You co-sponsored the Better Care for Animals Act. Congresswoman Malliotakis, you are well known among the press corps for your dog Luna, who you often carry in your bag.
That's right.
It's a she, right?
She's not here today. She had a scheduling conflict.
I was going to say, we were very disappointed she didn't make it out on stage. But would the two of you lead bipartisan legislation to bring more dogs into the workplace? Would that be a positive thing?
Absolutely.
Why not? I mean, who could be against that? To keep you calm. We need more people. We need therapy.
We definitely need pet therapy. And when we were going through the 1,000 of rounds of electing a speaker last year after the sudden departure of Kevin McCarthy, it got very stressful and tense in that Republican conference room. And I would bring in Luna, and it was like it was pet therapy. It really brought the temperature down. But yeah, look, I'm an animal lover. She's an animal lover. I think that's an area. Food and animals is pretty much where Republicans and Democrats, no matter where they are in the spectrum, can find some common ground. All right. And the truth is, I think the people we have the best relationships with are the ones that we've either traveled or have had social interaction. I mean, because you'll be surprised who you end up working with, in politics. There's people that I walked in there saying, there's no way I could ever work with that person. They're too extreme, or I just really don't agree with their politics. And then we actually end up finding something. And I've been surprised quite a few times.
So it looks like
relationships matter. I want to say that.
Yeah.
Every time I talk to, I'll say call somebody. That a text is not talking to somebody. Yeah. It's not, period. And if you trust somebody, you can work out deals. You can't I agree, that's another area we agree on. Social media is without fail one of the worst things that's happened to this country. It may be good but and relationships matter in building that trust. I go and sit on the Republican side on the floor a lot.
And just talk to people.
I mean, quite frankly, I hide over there sometimes.
Well, I think we figured it all out. More communication. Baby tiny dogs and baby elephants, and we'll solve all the problems on Capitol Hill. Is that what it'll take?
From your lips to God's ears.
and more women in Congress.
More women.
Yeah. All right. Congresswoman Dingell, Congresswoman Malliotakis, Wonder Woman, thank you for being here. Thank you so much for a really great conversation.
And here they are, NASA's Artemis II crew.
We are going for humanity.
3, 2, 1. Booster ignition. And liftoff. The crew of Artemis 2 now bound for the moon. Humanity's next great voyage begins.
Oh my God. I feel so good. Imagine I was in that rocket.
You guys are talking to us because we're in a spaceship really far from Earth, but you're on a spaceship called Earth that was created to give us a place to live in the universe, in the cosmos. Maybe the distance we are from you makes you think what we're doing is special, but we're the same distance from you, and I'm trying to tell you, just trust me, you are special.
Humanity has once again shown what we are capable of, and it's your hopes for the future that carry us now on this journey around the moon.
We will explore, we will build ships, we will visit again. We will construct science outposts, we will drive rovers, we will do radio astronomy, we will found companies, we will bolster industry, we will inspire. But ultimately, we will always choose Earth. We will always choose each other.
We can unite the world, that's awesome. But we're just the lucky four that got to be on this mission.
This is the beauty of this program. It brings an international collaboration, sets big goals, and doesn't just talk about them, but goes after them and gets it done.
To all of you down there on Earth and around Earth, we love you from the moon.
Being 200,000 plus miles away from home, like before you launch, it feels like it's the greatest dream on Earth. And when you're out there, you just want to get back to your families and your friends. It's a special thing to be a human, and it's a special thing to be on planet Earth.
Please welcome Lester Holt.
Hey guys. Well, was that a feel-good video or what? I mean, I get a little teary when I see some of that. What an exciting time, and it gives us an opportunity now to move past politics a little bit and even get above common ground. That's where we recently found ourselves as the whole world was looking upward at the trailblazing journey of 4 brave astronauts launched on a 10-day mission that brought them to a close encounter with the moon. In the process, the Artemis 2 mission reigniting our collective imaginations about what could be next in space. We've got 2 seasoned space travelers here to talk about the unifying power of space and NASA's ambitious goals. Jared Isaacman became NASA administrator late last year. Before that, he led private missions into space and now heads NASA's effort to land Americans on the moon in just a few short years. Sonny Williams is a retired naval aviator, an astronaut who's flown 3 missions to the space station in a career that included 608 days in space. She knows a little bit about long-duration space travel. Please welcome, if you would, Jared Isaacman and Sonny Williams. Great to see you. We're going to have you right over here. Sonny, it's great to see you. Please have a seat. Sonny and I have done several interviews, but you were always in space and I was on the ground.
Unfortunately, we didn't get to see each other face to face, so now I know the name, face, and voice.
Well, it's so great to have you both here. Let me start with you, Jared. Obviously, those clips kind of captured the excitement that everyone experienced watching this mission. Is that something that you would have predicted when it happened?
It is, honestly. You know, and I used to get that question a lot leading up to it, in fact, from a lot of people that, you know, have been passionate about space exploration for a long time and say, why isn't the world taking notice? We're about to send human beings around the moon. And
because it started looking routine.
Yeah, well, I think my point in the whole thing was back in the 1960s when there were 3 different television channels. It was a lot easier to captivate the world's interest in in a great race to land astronauts on the moon and bring them back safely. We have a lot of other things going on in our lives today, but I had no doubt when those solids lit and Artemis 2 was underway, the world was going to pause and take notice. And then you had 4 absolutely outstanding human beings that brought everybody along for the ride throughout the whole 10-day journey, and certainly had us all holding our breath as they re-entered and came safely back to Earth.
And Sonny, you weren't part of the Artemis program, but you watched like the rest of us. What was it like to see something that you certainly were part of the building blocks for that moment?
Yeah, it was incredible. I got to be down in Florida for the launch, and to actually see it happen, I mean, it really hit home about all the work that so many people, it's not just the astronaut office, it's the whole NASA space, contingent, as well as all the aerospace companies who have been working so hard to make this dream happen. And you just think in the back of your mind, all of those people, all of this made this amazing thing happen. And you see those pictures, and it's all worth it.
I was going to say that those moments that we just showed were part of your legacy, certainly. What will happen now? You and I have talked, Jared, about this being a space race. So this is not more than just igniting the public's interest. It's getting them to buy into something that we've done before. How do you react to that?
Well, I would say that where Artemis is picking up where Apollo 17 left off. And this is covered from the time the Artemis program was established, and then we recommitted to it in the National Space Policy. It was actually signed my first day on the job, which is not just to return American astronauts to the moon, but to do so to stay, to build an enduring presence, to realize its scientific and economic potential, to build a moon base so we can master the skills that will be needed someday when we send American astronauts to Mars and bring them back safely.
That sounds so cool, but the reality of it is really, really hard, what you guys do.
It's extremely hard, and that's why we'd rather figure it out on the South Pole of the moon than before we send astronauts to Mars. I mean, that's what's so interesting. I mean, we are targeting the South Pole of the moon where you have water, ice, not to mention the crater ridges give us near eternal light. So we have power, we have water, ice, so we can start, again, mastering the skills in situ resource manufacturing to make the propellant on the moon when you're days away from coming back to Earth if something goes wrong, versus trying to figure that out when we send astronauts to Mars. So not too distant future, we're going to have the capabilities to undertake a journey like that, but we're going to want to have the skills to be able to bring them back. Tell us all about it.
Okay, you've piqued my interest here because this is science fiction stuff, and you're talking about this in a few years. You'll be launching more missions in 27.
Yes.
Will they be going as far as this Artemis 2?
No, so we have kind of altered our plan a little bit. So Artemis 1, uncrewed demonstration, November 2022. We launched again for the first time with crew Artemis 2, April 1st, 2026, 3.5 years apart. Not a very good cadence for a rocket that's this complicated. And then we were not going to launch again until late 2028, where we were going to try and land astronauts on the moon itself. Those aren't like good ingredients for success. We're drawing on the playbook from the Apollo era. Consider Artemis 2 a combination of Apollo 7 and 8. What's coming up in 2027, which was now Artemis 3, this is going to be your Apollo 9. This is where we're going to test the Orion spacecraft, the same spacecraft that you saw those 4 astronauts live in for 10 days, and it's going to rendezvous with both landers in Earth orbit. Right? We're going to test out the interoperability because, again, if something doesn't work the way we expect, we'd rather be hours away from being back in the water and not days. And what we learn from that will roll into Artemis 4 in 2028, and that's where we're going to land astronauts on the moon. And in parallel, we're building the moon base.
And Sonny, as I said at the outset, you know a lot about long duration space travel. Some of it was not what you would have preferred as your mission was delayed coming home. But what does that say about these ambitious plans, that it takes a lot to make these successful? This particular mission was very successful, but they all won't be that way.
Yeah, it is hard. All of this is hard, but we've got, like I mentioned, a workforce that's up for the task and ready to do it. They've been working on these projects for quite some time, and they're ready to make the plan for the moon base. So, yes, we're going to learn a lot. This is what happens whenever we do research and development. We're going to learn a lot, and that's going to inform us for the next steps that we'll take and the next questions to even ask. So, yeah, I expect everything won't go as planned. There'll be a couple hiccups here and there, but we can survive that. We can deal with that, and we'll get better for it. Our mission was, a testament to that. We were lucky. We had the space station to pull over. Now these moon missions won't have a space station, but they will have a moon base in the future. But right now they're not going to have a space station to pull over. So we really emphasize all the T's need to be crossed. All the I's need to be dotted. We have to get it right.
Assuming that there's going to be a lot of people involved in this, establishing these moon bases, that means a long duration space exposure. You're an expert on that. What things are we not considering, or that NASA has to be considering in a big way?
Oh, I'm not sure we're not considering everything. I mean, we've learned quite a bit from living in space for a long time. We've had human presence on the International Space Station since 2000. So we've learned a lot, what happens to the human body, and we're going to transfer that as we go a little bit farther, obviously to the moon. And we've learned about exercise equipment. We've learned about nutrition. We've learned about engineering and manufacturing, even, biomedical engineering, doing research on stem cells and DNA. Sequencing while we've been up on the space station. So the space station has provided us with a myriad of technologies that we can apply on this moon base, and as we get ready to live there for a longer period of time.
I was going to ask, would either of you be willing to take the assignment to live on the moon?
I suspect our answer would be the same on this one. Yes.
Yes.
But if I can layer on, because Sonny makes fantastic points. I mean, the achievement we've had keeping human beings alive continuously for a quarter of a century above us in low Earth orbit. I mean, extraordinary accomplishment. And the next logical place is take what we've learned from there, which has been a great proving ground, and bring it to the surface of the moon, where we are going to learn entirely different lessons. We're going to go from microgravity to go to 1/6 gravity. But I can give you something else. Artemis 2, you may have noticed there was a period in mission control where the scientists jumped up and they were screaming of excitement because the Artemis 2 astronauts saw light flashes from micrometeor impacts into the moon. And everybody got excited because there was a question of whether or not they'd be able to see it. Of course we know. I mean, you just look at the surface of the moon. It takes a beating, right? But they actually saw it. And that allows us to maybe update our models of how often is it taking a beating. And if you know that, it might inform your roof design when you build a moon base. Because in low Earth orbit, micrometeoroid orbital debris is still a risk. Radiation is still a risk. But you get more protection from Earth's atmosphere, our magnetosphere there. You don't have that on the moon. And we're learning already now that's going to roll into future design for the moon base so we can keep people alive in that environment.
I mentioned earlier, this is a competition. You see this as a space race, the U.S. versus China.
I do.
Is that important to keep that competition up, to continue the interest we have seen here on Earth?
I think it's very important. I mean, it worked. First of all, having a good competition worked incredibly well for us on July 20th, 1969. Now, also important not to lose. So this is part of what we're doing right now at NASA is we are concentrating our resources. In fact, the national space policy and the funding we receive in the Working Family Tax Cut Act allow us to focus on pulling in Artemis launch architecture so we can see that amazing moon rocket launch on like an annual basis, if not better, not waiting every 3 years, and to take the pathways we have from our CLIPS program and LTV program and cargo lander program and start to land on the moon with frequency to build the moon base. So I'd say there is a competition, but we have the mandate and we have the resources to ensure that we pull ahead in this, an achievable pathway. And it does matter. I think it has national security implications. I think when you're able to achieve the near impossible, it sends a message to the world of what else is America capable of doing. And if you come up short, well, it sends the opposite message, not to mention all the scientific, the economic potential that comes out of pulling off an extraordinary accomplishment like that and the inspiration for everyone else to follow.
I'm going to be Debbie Downer here. This stuff costs a lot of money. And we know with Apollo 17, part of the reason there was no Apollo 18 was it cost a lot of money. How do you maintain, obviously, the interest of Congress and the interest of the American people in this, who may start asking at some point, why are we doing this?
Well, I think it's a different plan this time. Picking up where Apollo 17 left off, we're not just going back for short duration missions. We are going back to establish an enduring presence there where we can, over a long period of time, realize its scientific and economic potential. There may be a lunar economy someday where actually some of this starts to pay for itself. In fact, I've described often that igniting an orbital and a lunar economy is important so that we can realize this future in space, because it won't be what we imagine if it's perpetually funded by by taxpayers. So when companies say, I'm going to build a mass accelerator on the moon and start populating cislunar space with AI satellites, and that's going to create a lot of economic potential, I love that, because that probably means you're going to need more people living and working in space someday. So
can we afford to lose the space race?
I don't think so. I think the implications I think it would be a shock across the world if we were unable to return to the moon before our rival was able to get there for the first time.
Sonny, how do you feel about that?
Oh, I agree with Jared. You know, I think the way I look at it is we want to be there first because we want to write the rules of engagement, how we operate on the moon.
Because there's going to have to be that.
Yes, and we want to be up there as a friendly place where we can all work together and find common ground in space exploration and moon exploration, for that matter. So I feel exactly like Jared. You know, we have the ability to create, you know, those rules of engagement if we get there. And I have no doubt we have an amazing workforce that does amazing job making the impossible possible. So I think it will happen.
Shouldn't that process be started already about how everyone's going to get along and how, you know, we're not going to end up in wars in space?
Well, we already have an outer space treaty that does establish a lot of the rules for space right now. I think, you know, kind of moving on from how we get along, but how we establish standards to operate. That's the entire point of our phase 1 of the moon base, to go and experiment with things like power, so we can figure out what our power connectivity standards are going to be between our rovers and our power stations. This surface communication, it's not going to be wired. You know, how are all these vehicles and habitation modules talking to each other, and then how are we beaming that information back here to Earth? So the whole phase 1 of the moon base build out is about a lot of littles to experiment and learn what makes sense before you establish standards potentially in phase 2.
Sonny, you just came back from overseas. What read did you get on this program? And let me ask you how important it is to continue to make it an international crew.
Yeah, I'm reflecting on my time on the International Space Station, too, how we, you know, got a bunch of countries together, some of us not always friends at some point in time, and working really well together. I was overseas, and Artemis was going up. Everybody was glued to their TVs or glued to their phones, checking it out, checking out the pictures, seeing how we were, you know, in doing this, and they were just amazed and really excited about it. And there's definitely I think just in human nature, we all want to celebrate when we're successful and we do exploration. I personally felt it when I came back from my mission too, you know, not because we were going to the moon, but because we were there on the space station for quite some time, and sort of people got to know who I was in that regard. And not really even knowing me, just as strangers walking down the street in the jetway at the airport, people saying, I'm so glad you're home, you know, welcome back, which means I think space exploration and taking on these audacious goals draws us as humans together. They don't really know our backgrounds. They don't know, you know, what politics we have. They don't, you know, really know too much about my family or if I like dogs or I don't like dogs. They just were happy as human beings to have us come back.
I want to know what she does with her cornflakes and milk later on, but I don't know if you missed that. Well, I'll tell you later. Jared, how important is it to make this a truly international effort? Can you do it if this becomes a U.S.-only show?
Oh, I think every time we've ever gone out and tried to undertake the near impossible, we never go alone. So, of course, that's across the NASA workforce, our contractors, commercial partners, but international partners as well. That Artemis II mission, I mean, obviously we had a Canadian Space Agency astronaut on board. Jeremy did a fantastic job. Only non-American to ever visit the moon like that. But they were propelled there through the European Service Module. That was what ultimately undertook the translunar injection that was able to send those 4 astronauts farther away from Earth than any humans ever before. When we announced our ignition event, where we talked about returning to the moon to build the presence, to have the moon base, more than half of the 63 Artemis Accord signatories, countries from around the world, sent representatives to Washington, D.C. And the next day, we all got together in an auditorium, and it was, how are we all contributing to this? Is it going to be scientific instruments? And I said we could raid the pantry at every one of the NASA centers, and we would still have so much extra mass and volume on all these landers and rovers going to the moon. So what does that mean? It means students in universities across America and our international partners today are working on hardware that's going to be on the moon in the years ahead. So this is going to be a global effort. There's no doubt about it.
Can we talk just for a second about the crew on Artemis II? They were teachers. They just were really good at
poets.
Poets, yeah. I'm trying to find a way to characterize it, but how do you view them as and people like them in the astronaut corps as really making this case to the American people?
with?
Oh, we have a great group of colleagues, and, I've known all of them since they were new astronauts, and we work with each other, we train with each other, we discuss, we talk, we try to figure out what's the best solution together, and I think they were extraordinary at it during this mission. They're living, like you all saw, in really close quarters where, your foot is in someone's face the whole time you're trying to do something, and you really have to get to know each other and understand each other to be able to live and work like that. I think what they brought to us is how humanity can work together, even in uncomfortable situations, dire situations, and how they can come out, showing us how the right way to live together is. I mean, they were wonderful, but this is what we do in the astronaut office. This is what we do as anybody undergoes something that's a little daring, audacious. You have to prioritize what's really important, and what's really important is getting the job done and being able to relay that job.
What's the most important advice you got from an astronaut about spaceflight?
Get to know your crewmates.
Yeah.
Get to know everything about them, because you will get to know everything about them.
I don't spell it out for me, but I mean, it is pretty close quarters.
It's really close quarters. I mean, when you're doing, everybody has a day, a good day or a bad day, and you'll experience all of that together. And, you come out the other side just like these guys did.
So you found common ground among the crew.
Absolutely.
And you did mention on the space station you're working with, sometimes adversary countries. Did that ever play out? Did that ever become a part of your experience?
I never experienced anything like that.
Politics?
No, not at all. I mean, we all know, of course, we get news, so we know what's going on down on the Earth. We have sensitivities for each other's families who are potentially involved in things that are going on down here. But, on Friday night, we used to get together and do a little karaoke and have a meal together. So everybody, you find common ground, just as, like I mentioned, human beings. What's really important? Everybody wants to laugh. Everybody wants to have fun. Everybody cares about.
Well, maybe I'll see you at a moon base and we'll do some karaoke someday.
All right, let's do it.
You guys are terrific. Sonny, thank you very much. Jared, thank you very much for being here. Congratulations on the success of the mission. And we wait, expecting there's some next big announcement. So we'll be staying tuned for that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Our country loves sports, and it brings us together unlike anything else.
Please welcome NBC Sports host and play-by-play voice, Mike Tirico.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, everybody. It's great to see you. I hope you all enjoyed some of the great events that we've had the honor to bring back home to America over the last few months or so. I am here to tell you that it's my honor to host the last panel, which means you're about 20 minutes away from whatever you'd like to eat or drink at this point. That's why they bring me at the end. The Olympics brought 25 million people per night. The Super Bowl, over 125 million. And that does define common ground in a way that we don't really talk about common ground very much these days. When I was given this assignment and heard about the topic, I was trying to think, what's the best example I have in sport for common ground? And there are about 100 I could come up with, but I want to give you one. I don't know if there are any Washington Commanders fans here who root for the team. Good, because I'm going to talk about the Eagles right now. So the Philadelphia Eagles have a great... Any Eagles fans, by the way? Thank you. Good to hear from you. Nice to hear you not booing. So the Eagles have a great offensive line. And there are two guys, Jordan Mailata and Landon Dickerson. And they line up next to each other. Big, heavy guys pushed up against, sweating all over people, clearing the way for Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts. One guy is from Australia. Never played football in high school. Only became a football player when he came over to the U.S. Landon Dickerson is from Alabama. He's been a child of the South and has loved football his whole life. But yet these two guys, one Aussie, one Alabaman, stand next to each other and form one of the most formidable duos in football. And that's the common ground of sport. Doesn't matter where you're from, doesn't matter who you knew. If you find your way to the same team, you become inexorably linked. You become a formative combo that can change the game. And that's why sports is such a great common ground. We bring people in from all over under our roof, and hopefully we can use that as another platform to remind how great a connector we can have in our country under the umbrella of sport. And we have three individuals who are here with us this afternoon who I think in so many ways can help us understand from different sports why there is common ground to be found in the games we play. So please welcome, and then we'll introduce them after they're out here, Brandi Chastain, Alana Myers-Taylor, and Adam Silver.
Thank you.
Commissioner, thank you so much. Okay, the quick bios. Do you want the real formal bios or you just want the headlines?
No.
You want the headlines? Okay, Brandi wore a sports bra once. Shared it with everybody. After a bit of I'd say the most historic goal scored in American soccer. Three-time Olympian, couple of World Cups as champion for Team USA playing soccer, and has spread the world of soccer, her word, her excitement, her passion for the game over the years. Alana is fresh off winning a gold medal in Milan Cortina. One of her 6 medals, by the way. They're all great. But the gold's a little bit better?
Yeah, a little.
Okay, I just want to say. As decorated a bobsledder as we've seen in our country, and as decorated a female athlete as we have had in the Winter Games. So her 5 Olympic appearances have a lot of experience of bringing the world together in that Olympic village and traveling around the world in the bobsled space. And Commissioner Silver has only watched the growth of basketball to incredible global heights during your time in the NBA, going back to the early 90s. You started when the Dream Team started, right, in 92?
Yep.
With the NBA. And now the game of basketball has so many international stars, and now the commissioner is leading a path that could lead to seeing the NBA, a version thereof, over in Europe, in addition to all the international players. So much to talk about the common ground of sports with this group. I want to start with all of you just in general on the unification that sports brings. You've lived it, locker rooms, played 190 international plus matches. What is it about sport that really gives us a common ground to share space with people from around the world?
I think number one is the enjoyment of the game. We can all feel that sense of accomplishment when we compete and when we challenge ourselves. And we understand the feeling when somebody else has it. Soccer is a big field. And so we can't always have intimate conversations out there, but I can look at my teammate from across the field and we meet eyes and it's like, I got you. And we just shared something really special, and we could come from different places and still have that same feeling. In soccer, we talk about how the game has a language, even though we don't speak the same language. And so I think that just allows us to meet in a place that we understand each other.
How about for you in bobsleds? Difference. And by the way, we should say you're back someplace very familiar for you, because you started this athlete tour and quest as a softball player at George Washington.
Yep, right down the road.
So we got you back in D.C. So how the heck, by the way, how did you go from George Washington record-setting softball player to Olympic 6-time medalist in bobsled?
So, I think it all started with the Olympic dream. And I grew up right outside Atlanta. 96 games were there. Saw it up close and personal. And that games was so instrumental for women's sports in general that seeing so many powerful women, the introduction of women's softball, I was like, well, I can be an Olympian too. I just got to find the right sport. Lo and behold, long story short, softball didn't work out. Had an Olympic tryout. It was the worst tryout in the history of tryouts. There's no lie. Is that just for you? Yes, that was for me. It
it was that bad. I mean, objectively, if anybody was there, they could attest to it. It was that bad. So I still want to be an Olympian. I had this dream to represent my country. And I think that's one of the biggest things unifying of sport, especially at the Olympic level, is because it transcends just you as an athlete. It's about your country. It's about going out there representing the red, white, and blue as best as you can. And it doesn't matter what political background you are, where you come from, or anything like that. Like, it's all about a greater good. And in that case, in our case, it's your country.
I want to get to the passion of the Olympics and the connection of the Olympics in a minute. Commissioner, we at NBC are back associated with the NBA after a great long run during the Michael Jordan era, if you will. And year one coming back has meant for me a return to the NBA after a decade away from it in terms of covering. And what I love is the number of international players. We just had 2 games in San Antonio where Victor Wembanyama from France and Deni Avdija from Israel, the 2 best players on each team. And that's not uncommon around the league. So I guess you see the common ground in a very different way.
Yeah, a few things. First of all, I have to mention Alana's husband works for the San Antonio Spurs. He left that out of her bio. So there's that. And you mentioned the Dream Team earlier, which was right around when I started with the league. And at that point in 1992, 6% of NBA players were born outside the United States. Now it's over 30%. So to your point, and obviously, Victor Wembanyama, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, you go on, Jokic, et cetera. Some of our very best players are international. But so I see it both sort of in the United States, where all our teams are but one, which is in Canada, but then with a very global league that, Steve Kornacki, I heard him earlier, was using the statistics on common ground. He should add sports to that because, I read this the other day. It said in the United States, it's sort of the last pillar of monoculture in the United States, and I really think that's the case. You and I both travel regularly to NBA games throughout the country. You're bouncing from San Antonio to Oklahoma City to San Francisco to New York, et cetera. And I find there is much more common ground than you would think, particularly looking at social media or often hearing our elected officials. I think most people, sort of what Steve's research was showing, that, on certain core issues, certain core values in the United States, it's in many ways what makes this country so special. And you guys have done so much internationally, and that when I travel as an American, as an NBA executive, people associate this country with those values and those universal values. And I think there's a way to do it, and we try in the NBA to not be political, but to be values-based. And there's a long, goes back to Bill Russell and, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Oscar Robertson, we could go on and on. It's part of the DNA of this league. And but to do it in a way where it's not overly political, but it is the values of this game. And like sitting next to 2 gold medalists, what makes them so great is because of resiliency and hard work and teamwork and all those great things that we think also are representative of our country.
Yeah, it struck me, I was in New Orleans for the Saints' first home football game after Hurricane Katrina. And it was New Orleans' signal to the world, we're back and open for business. And the cool part was, you look down in the section in front of me, there were black and white and male and female and I don't know what other different census boxes you could have checked from back in the day, but they were all wearing black and gold. They were unified by sport. And you two have had that experience of people from very different parts of our country, maybe people with different beliefs, who are unified by Team USA. And you've also seen the power of your performance unifying our country. What was it like for you, this most recent experience, for the 5th time representing the U.S. in the Olympics?
So the feedback we've gotten post-Olympics has been incredible. And for me in particular, I went back to New Braunfels, Texas, where we're living now, and they threw me a parade, which is the first time I'd ever been thrown a parade.
Wait. Has anybody else in here been thrown a parade? All right, so you are the expert on this. Okay. Talk to us, girl. Come on.
And so what was really cool about this is I think, I thought a lot about this afterwards, and I think people just went into their closets, pulled whatever red, white, and blue they had in their closets out, and came to the parade. And so looking out, I was on a fire truck, looking out on the people who attended the parade, you saw people in a Harris t-shirt right next to people in a Trump t-shirt. And it didn't matter because they were there to celebrate something that was bigger than all of us, celebrate this great moment that happened in the Olympics and something positive. And that's what I really felt like the Milan Cortina Games, Olympics and Paralympics really brought, is they brought a positive moment when so many people are going through so many hard times. They were able to turn on their TV and see athletes from all walks of life doing their best to represent a country and win medals.
And Brandy, it didn't start with you all, but in many ways it did. In 1999, in the Rose Bowl, winning the World Cup as the World Cup was held in the United States. And, of course, that had a unifying effect for the U.S. But it also had a unifying effect, I think, for women's sports. Because that may be that first event that people can look back and say, wow, that's our team. And it was a bunch of guys who were so proud of what the women did. And that has really taken off. It's more than a moment. It's a movement now in women's sports. As you reflect back over the last couple of decades since that happened, why do you think that impact was so powerful then and has grown from that point on?
Oh, there's so many things I would like to say right now, and I'm going to try and be as succinct as possible. You know, I think about what I see in the WNBA. I go to Valkyrie's games, or I go. You know, I'm a founder and a minority owner of Bay FC and the NWSL, and the growth in professional women's sports is just phenomenal. And I think back to my mother and her generation, and that's a pre-Title IX, 1972 law that was enacted. And the fact that my mother didn't have people encouraging her to participate and to play. Sure. And so I think when we set out as a team to win the World Cup, you know, irregardless, wherever what was going to be, that was our goal, of course. But when Marla Messing took over as leading the Women's World Cup Committee, and she said, we're going to do this big in a way that FIFA, one, didn't believe, and two, nobody had ever seen before. Right. And we said, we're going to do it. And so on the outside, we were like, we're going to do it. And then on the inside, we're like, oh my God, are we going to do it? Like, because it was selling a lot of tickets. It was 1 million tickets or so, or maybe more. And
Can I interrupt you? Can you take us on the bus as you guys pulled up at the stadiums? Because I've seen some of those videos. By the way, they're going to do a movie on their team, the 99ers. There have been a couple of really good documentaries and movies coming out on them. But that anecdote that I've heard a few of you tell of just being on the bus and seeing how packed the stadiums were was so cool.
Well, the first bus ride to the New Jersey to Meadowlands, you know, we had a police escort, and so of course we never get this. So we were like, we thought this was like a rock star celebrity status, right? And we're all on the bus. Some of the people have their hair painted and their fingernails are done, and you know, like little kids. And we get close to the stadium, and the traffic is so dense, and now we're in it. And we're like, what the heck is going on? Like, honestly, the question was, why are we not going? And then we inched close to the stadium, and we realized, oh, my gosh, they're coming to the World Cup. Yeah. And it was like we were looking out the window like we were at the zoo. It was like, who were the people looking? Were we the animals? Were they the animals? Like, we don't know. But it was just this surreal moment of they're coming to watch women's sports. And so I think 1999 was a seminal moment because nobody had ever dreamed or believed or invested in an event that would be so big like this before. And to be honest, we crushed it.
Yes, absolutely. And the legacy is still going on.
And as strange as it is, like my story doesn't happen without your story. Like I remember, there's very few pivotal moments in your life that you remember exactly where you were sitting. And I remember I was at a softball tournament, oddly enough, and our team, huge soccer fans. I had only played soccer marginally, but I remember exactly where I was sitting in the restaurant we were at. We had a break in the tournament, and I remember watching everything and watching that, and that put a seed in my head. It's like, hey, this is what women's sports can look like at the highest level, and I want to be a part of that. So you set a legacy for athletes, even in winter sport, that you might not have even knew would have happened in that moment.
No, we did not know that.
And you've been a part of that.
I also say because we're here in Washington, D.C., I don't think either one of their stories, Brandy mentioned, it would have happened without Title IX.
Right.
I remember when we launched the WNBA 30 years ago, Birch Bayh, Senator from Indiana, was the co-sponsor of the bill, threw up the opening ball. And I mean, it just shows where government policy can really make an impact on these things. And, thank you for mentioning the WNBA, but it was interesting. I mean, it took a long time to build that league. So much credit goes to my predecessor, David Stern, Val Ackerman, who was the first commissioner of the WNBA. And it's been amazing what we've seen. I mean, thanks to incredible athletes like you guys, just that turn in women's sports really, it began sort of certainly with your team, inspired all kinds of women. And create business opportunities as well. I mean, part of it is the commercial side of it. But what we're seeing in the WNBA, just in the last 5 years or so in particular, our current commissioner's doing a great job. Draft, was like huge audience for the draft, the interest in these athletes now. So it's really spectacular. And I'd say, again, like when you see the interest from the public, and it's quite remarkable. I mean, what we're now seeing. I mean, and thanks to I was doing something with Serena Williams around the Olympics. We were both there in Paris, and we were having a discussion. And I forget exactly what the question, but she essentially said, "We were always here." It wasn't like all of a sudden you're like, "We were here. We were doing these great things." It's like all of you finally are now recognizing that.
Yeah, and I think that really is the true story. For decades, women have been talking about, hey, when Title IX was enacted, people couldn't believe that women were interested in sports. And we said, well, you don't give us there's nothing on the menu.
Right.
Like, how can we choose if we don't have it to choose from? So that's what I was going to say, is that we've been talking about this. It took U.S. Soccer from, after 1999, it took them 23 years to get pay equity. 23 years.
A few lawsuits in there.
Yes. But but that's what I'm saying. It was not overnight that 99 turned everything. It planted the seeds. It was a watershed moment. There was a lot of impact. But it took time, and it took a lot of people to be invested, like the resiliency that you had in your career to get to that fifth Olympic Games and win that gold medal.
5 games, 6 medals. It just gets it's all numbers.
It's confusing.
It's all numbers. We need Kornacki back out here. We only have a couple of minutes left. I want to hit you with a few quick thoughts. I'd love to start with you. We talk about common ground. I think of soccer, obviously, as a global game, but basketball started here, has grown through the NBA globally. You mentioned the international players. I think of programs like Basketball Without Borders and how every year intentionally the NBA helps take the game globally. Now, we're seeing a lot of those players come back, but that impact from where you have sat over the last couple of decades in the league.
Yeah, again, so basketball is probably the number 2 sport in the world after soccer, and it's just seen tremendous growth. And I think part of it is, because it's indoors, outdoors, so much of the growth has come in women's basketball. We're seeing, it's a nonviolent sport. I think that's made a big difference globally. But again, sort of even our core mission is improving people's lives through the sport of basketball. And I think that, despite divisions, not just in the United States, but globally, it's one thing whether we're in China or in the Gulf region or we're in various countries in Africa, that people come together through sport. And I've been with lots of elected officials, or foreign leaders, and the one thing they'll say is they light up, when they talk about sports and they talk about what it means to the youth, boys and girls, getting them physically active. Even in poor countries and certainly in wealthy countries, you see increases in childhood obesity and diabetes. It's sort of something to counterbalance that. They also, I think, team sports, what it can do for teaching people the values of working together, being part of a community. I mean, talk about common ground. It's those things come through sports.
What I love about that is in the communities when they see stars from France, stars from Israel, and they're rooting for them, regardless of feelings about the country or anything of the sort. That's the common ground that sports does really put in city by city. We have a minute left. I'm going to go around the horn in a sentence or two. We just finished a terrific Olympics in Italy, Winter Games. The next Olympics is in Los Angeles in 2028. And it has been over 3 decades, about a third of the American population not born when the Olympics were in L.A. We're in Atlanta, excuse me. We'll have them in L.A. The last Olympics in the U.S. was a Winter Games in 2002. So it's been a long time. What do you think the global impact could be on the L.A. Games? I'll start with somebody who calls California home. Not Southern California, but also, what do you think the impact can be? And like I said, you only have 2 sentences, so go ahead.
Oh, God.
I know. Hey, look, it's not my fault. We could stay all day. But
I would say that it starts with one child. I volunteered in 1984. I was an usher for the soccer games, and that was my first experience with the Olympics.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And so everybody can participate. Whether, for us in soccer, it's a pay-to-play sport here in this country, and so everybody can volunteer and everybody can be a part of the movement.
It's a great message. I'll go to you next. I'll leave the most current Olympian for last.
Well, again, talk about common ground. I think it's going to be an opportunity for the country to truly come together through sport. And I think that we without time zone issues, Mike, you're on at all times of day, when you're coming from Italy or France or wherever you've been. And I think to have an LA Olympics, to have all these fantastic sports focused on, to have women have the same sort of access and status that the men will have in those sports, I think Americans, just like with Artemis, I think people are really going to rally around it.
Alana?
I think it's a moment for the American people to really be proud of our country. And I think with so much political division and so much going on in the world, sometimes it could be really hard. But the Olympics brings everybody together, and it's really an opportunity for us to show the best of us, to show the best volunteers in the world, the best organizing committee in the world, and to show what we're really made of.
I always like to remind people, Team USA is a red and blue state at the same time, so we can all be together on that. This was so wonderful. I know how busy all of you are. You still in the glow of your success and two wonderful kids that you are raising. You just got off a plane from Spain a few hours ago, and I think we're in the middle of the NBA playoffs, so both of us are traveling to different cities and watching brackets. And
I'll see you somewhere soon.
I will see you in an arena in a few days. We are so appreciative of all your time, your expertise, and thank you for the common ground that you've helped laid for all of us as sports fans. So thank you, Randy Chastain, Alana Myers-Taylor, and Adam Silver. Thank you so much. So good to see you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Safe home, Randy. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to them. And before we all say goodbye, my colleagues, and it's so cool to call them colleagues, Kristen Welker and Lester Holt are going to come back out to join us one last time as we get to thank all of you for being a part of this wonderful day.
That was an incredible conversation.
It really was.
Yeah, thank you so much. And hopefully you all see why we chose these incredible topics: politics, space, sports, these topics that have the capacity to unite us and also spark such incredible passion. We hope you really enjoyed all of these conversations, and we appreciate your being here.
And that is going to do it for our inaugural Common Ground event. Thank you for joining us in this proud moment for NBC News. We hope to continue these conversations in the months ahead. Thank you, and good night, everyone.
Good night.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.